Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us to witness a very unique time of the year, and that is the first 10 days of dhul-hijjah, which started a few days ago, and which the Prophet ﷺ mentions in a hadith, مَا مِنْ أَيَّامٍ الْعَمَلُ الصَّالِحِ فِيهَا حَبُّ إِلَى اللَّهِ مِنْ هَذِهِ الْأَيَّامِ, that there's no days of the year when when good deeds are more beloved to Allah Azza wa Jal than these 10 days of dhul-hijjah. In order for actions to be considered acceptable, they must be done sincerely, as well as in accordance to the Sunnah and the rulings of the Sharia. And the reward a person attains for an action is directly associated with their intention and sincerity that they would have in the act, as is narrated by the Prophet ﷺ in a well-known hadith, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, which actions are judged by their intentions, and a person will have the reward based on the intention and the sincerity that a person has in those acts. Additionally, the Prophet ﷺ mentions in a hadith that's narrated in Sahih Muslim that Allah Azza wa Jal says, أَنَا أَغْنَى الشُّرَكَاءِ عَنِ الشِّرْكِ مَنْ عَمِلَ عَمَلًا أَشْرَكَ فِيهِ مَعِيَ غَيْرِي تَرَكْتُهُ وَشِرْكَهُ. That Allah Azza wa Jal says, as a hadith Qudsi, that I am the most removed and least in need of a partner. So anyone who does an act and associates that act or does that act for me and something else, then Allah Azza wa Jal will abandon that act and the shirk that was associated with it. Additionally, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions in Surah Hijr, where Shaitan is speaking and about his plan for mankind, and he states, وَلَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ إِلَّا عِبَادَكَ مِنْهُمُ الْمُخْلَصِينَ, that Shaitan is going to try to deceive all of mankind, but acknowledges that he will not be successful and be unable to do so with the sincere slaves of Allah Azza wa Jal. So why is ikhlas of particular importance during these days? Allah Azza wa Jal has selected a group of His slaves to participate in a life-changing event during these days and during this month, and that is the Hajj. The person that has been selected and given the opportunity to perform the Hajj, if it's accepted from them, they return from the pilgrimage as كَيَوْمَ وَلَدَتْهُ أُمُّهُ, that basically like the day they were born, with regard to having no sins and being able to start fresh, and essentially purifying all their missteps and sins and mistakes from the past. However, for those of us who may not have been selected for that honor during these days, that doesn't mean that there's no opportunity to do a similar type of purification and attaining the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal. The ulama, ikhlas linguistically is to purify something, and the ulama mention amongst the various definitions of ikhlas that when it comes to an Islamic definition, that ikhlas is tasfiyat as-sirr wal-qawl wal-amal, that basically a person purifies their internal actions, their statements, and their external actions from being insincere or being for other than attaining the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal. It's from this that some of the ulama have broken ikhlas down into categories, saying that there's ikhlas in statements and in actions and in acts of worship, as well as in feelings and actions of the heart. Obviously, during these 10 days, everyone is striving to, increase their good deeds. And, it's as part of that effort, it's imperative for everyone to be more conscious and cognizant of why, and of Allah Azza wa Jal, and that is the reason why a person is doing good deeds and why a person is doing some of their day-to-day tasks as well. So, it's very important for, as well as increasing in actual acts of worship, but to also increase the quality of those acts. And the quality of those acts can increase not only from trying to perfect them, in their tangible form, but also to purify any type of impurities that may be involved with the intent behind them and the sincerity of a person when doing those acts. One of the other definitions that's mentioned by the ulama for ikhlas is that a person, when they do an act, they seek no one to witness it other than Allah Azza wa Jal. They hope that it's never seen, and the only person that knows they did it is Allah Azza wa Jal. Whether others see it or they don't has no bearing and no impact on the individual. So obviously when you go through your day, there's a number of actions that a person is involved in, and all of them may not be pure acts of ibadah, but you're involved in many things that are associated with your responsibilities, whether taking care of your families, taking care of other responsibilities. And those are all opportunities to remind yourself, of the why behind it, and to, establish that form of, congruence between an act that's being done, maybe because it has to be, but that doesn't mean that a person can't get reward for it, or that they can't seek the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jalla through it. So that is something that is an opportunity that these days provide, is for a person to essentially try to level up their cognizance of why they're doing things, and in addition to increasing the actual acts of worship. So inshallah, paying a specific attention to one's sincerity in actions would not only allow for good deeds to be of a higher quality and inshallah more susceptible to being accepted, but also allows a person to use these days and the opportunity to try to constantly remember Allah Azza wa Jal during the course of their day, and make their day and their other actions of their day sincere. And if they haven't been, to find a way to recalibrate, to make them sincere, seeking the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to bless us during these days with the tawfiq to do more good deeds and to remember Him and be sincere in all of our actions and statements. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك